All right. Good. All right. Hey, what's going on, guys? I know probably a lot of you here were previously building Miniapps and talking about a lot of devy, techie stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about ecosystem and more on the side of the social side of Farcaster today with a little bit of Arbitrum flavoring. My name is Hunter. I do community strategy at Offchain Labs. We build Arbitrum. And it's been my pleasure to do a lot of the ecosystem leading within Farcaster on the Arbitrum side. So we'll touch on a little bit of what Arbitrum is like today, for those of you who don't know, some of the experimentation being currently done in the ecosystem, why Farcaster, why Arbitrum has decided to kind of make the deep dive into Farcaster the past couple of months, the state of Arbitrum and Farcaster, and of course, what's next. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to hold them until the end. I'd be happy to answer them. So just talking about Arbitrum to begin with, not to get too deep, a lot of people know it as like the land of liquidity, so to speak. So Arbitrum mainly dominates currently in DeFi, has perps, RWAs, lending and borrowing, any of the financial stuff you would like to do on chain, and of course capital flow. So that's like the classic on-ramping, off-ramping through Hyperliquid, Aster, and of course direct connections to other big exchanges, and of course teams like Robinhood as well. But I think the main thing to keep in mind here, and kind of the reason why I bring this up, is because these are all important features for sustainable projects and for teams that want to build long-term an ecosystem that continues to thrive and continues to have a lot of capital flow in and out. So what about the experiments? That's kind of what Farcaster is all about. I think in its own way, Arbitrum has a lot of its own experiments going on currently. I'll touch on each of them and why I consider them experiments in a little bit. USDAI is probably one of my most favorite ones currently that's recently come up. You can essentially earn yield by providing liquidity to AI companies with real collateral. Think like Tesla chargers, think like kind of GPU farms and stuff like that. And essentially they have a token that is able to bear the yield that those things provide on chain. They currently have about $500 million in capital across Arbitrum, Arbitrum 1, and Plasma. The cool part about that is any of the capital on other chains besides Arbitrum has underlying liquidity on the Arbitrum itself. So anything on Plasma essentially has its own kind of staking on Arbitrum too. We have Talos, crypto's first agent-controlled treasury project with DeFi strategies across Arbitrum, backed by Onchain Labs and supported by Ethereum a couple times. And of course, Robinhood. Probably didn't expect me to say Robinhood was an experiment, but hear me out. This is the first traditional finance company to commit to bringing their business completely on-chain, kind of leading that launch and migrate model that we like to talk about. In a lot of our other speeches you may hear, essentially launching primarily first on Arbitrum 1, very neutral, very liquid kind of main chain, and then later migrating and kind of creating their own kind of ecosystem on their own chain, with Offchain Labs kind of being the partner with them all the way throughout that journey. You'll probably hear me talk about the launch and migrate stuff even more throughout this speech and see how I kind of relate it to Farcaster a little bit. So why Farcaster? So number one, indie builders. I think Farcaster is like probably the best breeding ground for idea stage developers. And I say this because I think like if you've kind of interacted with the ecosystem on the timeline and you've spoken with a lot of the developers there, a lot of them just have incredibly great ideas. While there's a lot of people on Twitter who have the same thing, I feel like Farcaster folks just tend to put those ideas into action much more often than people on X do. And that's definitely one thing that I think the Arbitrum ecosystem, when it first kind of got started back in 2021, I've been there since then, is kind of like the soul and like the blood of Arbitrum's growth. These kind of very small teams to begin with, just experimenting, trying new things out, and of course, leveraging the Arbitrum ecosystem for their growth. So Farcaster has a ton of that, and I wanted to make sure that the Arbitrum ecosystem was able to provide support for indie builders there, and also help them grow alongside ourselves. The second is the creator economy and on-chain social. You probably did not expect to hear that in an Arbitrum speech. The strong social graph within Farcaster, I think, is what makes for a great foundation for communities to grow. I myself am a content creator. I've been creating content since 2020. Crypto videos on YouTube and like different platforms like Library, Odyssey, and even Steemit, if some of you guys remember that stuff. But I think that this is a really, really important and vital piece why I think Farcaster is valuable, because there's never been a better time to be a content creator, just in general, especially in crypto. And I do think that any ecosystem can benefit from incredible people that can tell stories in an effective way and deliver that to people inside the ecosystem and outside the ecosystem. And then working with these people, obviously, to me is, of course, invaluable, since I like to do this stuff myself. And of course, Arbitrum everywhere. I won't dive deep into this one too much, because that could be an entire slide, an entire presentation. But I think the main idea here is that wherever there is value to be tokenized, we want Arbitrum to be the premier option for that. And what I mean is, you saw the experimentation slide earlier, where we mentioned a couple of different projects, both quite small, actually, and obviously as big as a Fortune 500 company. And the idea there is, you're not too big or too small to come up with an incredible idea and see that grow with a partner like Offchain Labs, like Arbitrum. And that's why we want to be in places where people have these incredible ideas and have these visions for seeing things that, if we're tokenizing things, like today we're talking about stocks, we're talking about commodities. Tomorrow we may be talking about, someone was pitching me nautical assets the other day, like things on the water. Or maybe we're talking about like coffee beans. Someone tagged me in a coffee bean post calling them RWAs. There's no idea too big or too small, I think, for it to potentially succeed and have some sort of adoption tied to it at the end. And we want to make sure that Arbitrum is your first choice to deploy something like that. So what are the state of things? I put that picture last minute because I thought it was kind of cute. So currently there are about 9 different mini apps on Farcaster. When I say 9 additions, I mean like 9 really pillar mini apps to the Farcaster ecosystem, like Noise, Clanker, Empire Builder, stuff like that have been around in Farcaster for quite some time, that have, of course, worked with the Arbitrum ecosystem to integrate that into their stack. We have 27 exclusive or native mini apps. I put 27 there because I think this was I made this maybe a month ago or so. May have increased and gone up a little bit since then. But it includes stuff like Bribe, Cardboard as a community, Arblitz, I think it's like Flapitrum. It's like a bunch of different mini apps that exist on Arbitrum today. I couldn't list all of them here because otherwise the slide would be too long. But there's a lot of really, really cool ideas and a lot of people experimenting on Arbitrum. A lot more, of course, people that I'm talking to as well that I think are creating really, really interesting ideas. And ideally, creating things that are a little bit different than what already exists on Farcaster today. The idea isn't to replicate things and just have them be copy and paste onto one chain into the other. I think the idea is to kind of come in and create a net new kind of ecosystem of ideas and mini apps, and just have the Farcaster ecosystem equally benefit as much as the Arbitrum ecosystem does. We have an active DirectCast group dedicated to Arbitrum community and builders, so shout out to you guys. I was posting a ton in the chat before then. It's actually a great place to hone in everyone's ideas, kind of get thoughts, provide feedback, try new mini apps. Again, Farcaster in general does a great job at that. So I think having an even more siloed group chat with an ecosystem like that, we call it the RB Cabal. If you want to join, just let me know afterwards. It's infinitely valuable for anyone kind of building things, wanting to get feedback, try things out, iterate, et cetera. And of course, officially marketing Farcaster as an added distribution channel for teams. So currently, we actually do this for teams that are doing things that are, as I was saying earlier, a little bit experimental in nature, maybe not necessarily only DeFi related. We'll touch on the DeFi part in a second. But it's been great to be able to tell people, hey, obviously X is great. LinkedIn might be great too if you're kind of doing something there, that maybe resonates there. But Farcaster is another great example or great place to say, if you want someone to just dog food your app, try it out, give you feedback, et cetera, probably one of the best places to do it, to be honest. And again, people are very receptive of actually when I tell them Farcaster, I usually have to give them a little bit of an explanation on why, but it ends up resonating very well after the fact. So what's next? I probably should have included the Dev Rewards Part 1 on that original slide. But essentially, for the past couple of months, there have been essentially $2,500 going to the top 5 Arbitrum mini apps in the Farcaster ecosystem. And while that program has been paused for about a month or so, there has since been a kind of like a developer crowdfund for Arbitrum devs created by FlowState. So I think they actually created something similar called Cracked Farcaster Devs a little while ago. Now they have an Arbitrum version of that, so Cracked Arbitrum Devs. And we're currently figuring out the next iteration of the Dev Rewards program, but until then, there's a crowdfunding thing going. And I think the main thing to point out here is that there's a lot of learnings from the first program. It's great to reward people for building things that drive impact on Farcaster. But I think more than anything, to go back to the original point, is we want to try to drive more innovation within the Farcaster ecosystem. There's a lot of great minds there and a lot of great ideas. And I think I feel like at least my personal job feels like it should be to get people to be even more creative, get them to experiment more, and get them, and of course, have them benefit from that experimentation, whether it be through dev rewards or whether it be through even just further partnership and more of a deeper collaboration with the Arbitrum ecosystem. The second thing is the DeFi mini-apps. I think I feel like decentralized finance or finance in general in the Farcaster mini-app, there isn't enough of it. My original goal coming into Farcaster a couple months ago was to try to drive a lot of that. I think I was more successful in driving more general mini-apps, but not enough DeFi ones. So it's something we're going to try to figure out as time goes on. That means like perps, that means lending and borrowing. That could even mean just like existing DeFi experiences that exist today, but maybe are just more gamified or more interactive than they would be if they were just a standalone app. So that's something I would love to see more on Farcaster, and something that I think if it were to come from anywhere, it would come from the Arbitrum ecosystem. And lastly, working with longer-term teams. I think I might have just word vomited over here, so you can ignore that. But pretty much, I mentioned the launch and migrate model earlier, kind of talking about the whole Arbitrum everywhere thing. And I think this also applies to Farcaster in a sense. I think there's something to be said about being able to work with teams, work with people that have, like I said earlier, these great ideas, but maybe don't have their distribution, maybe they don't have the right connections, maybe they don't even have someone to talk to from a chain ecosystem that they're building on. And that's where I think we could be the most valuable for people. Essentially taking them from stage 0 idea to stage 1 kind of production Farcaster, and then of course stage 2, expanding their app beyond Farcaster and being almost a success story for the Farcaster ecosystem, and saying here is this incredible app, just crypto app that has done tons of transaction volumes, has driven tons of impact, and has crossed many different ecosystems, but it was born on Farcaster first. And I think that would benefit quite literally everybody. And it's something that I think we can position the Arbitrum ecosystem very strategically as. Not necessarily being able to help out the long tail of 1,000 devs that are on Farcaster, but more so saying we can create tailored experiences and work and kind of give these white glove kind of experiences to the devs that are saying, that are thinking long term and saying, what, I have this idea, I think it can be incredible, I want to try it out on Farcaster as a mini app, make it work, get it viral, maybe as a top 5 trending app, and then I want to figure out a way to expand beyond that and make this idea into a product that people actually use day to day in and out of the Farcaster mini app ecosystem as a regular app. So that's definitely something that we're going to try to kind of figure out as an ecosystem and really tailor more experiences towards. We're already kind of doing this with a couple of mini apps on Farcaster actually, but it's early days. It's very early days. And that being said, I think that's it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now or off the stage. I don't know if anyone has a mic. There's a mic over here. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask me. Arbitrum related, Farcaster related, content creator related, anything. But otherwise, I'll be sitting there in the audience afterwards. All right. Sweet. Thanks, guys.